This episode is brought to you by Muntins Malts, a company that is passionate about providing premium malts to brewers worldwide. For over a century, Muntins has been a leading supplier of brewing and distilling malts, offering the finest British malted barley on the market. You can experience the difference Muntins offers by joining a recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club, because every kit that ships out now includes premium Muntins malt. You know, we've known the Muntins crew for a long time, and I can tell you, friend, you're going to love brewing with their grains. Ask your local supply shop to carry Muntins malts, or homebrewers can join our Trub Club at homebrewhappyhour.com/club, be a part of the community, and come brew with us. Thank you, Muntins, for supporting our efforts and homebrewers worldwide. Today's show is brought to you by hopsdirect.com. Grown in the esteemed Yakima Valley on the Pewterball family farm, hopsdirect.com offers the widest variety of hops available online at incredibly competitive pricing. It's simple. They grow hops, they sell hops, and they ship hops straight from their family-owned farm to your doorstep. Producing the highest quality hops is hopsdirect.com's passion, and they're proud to be an independent grower in the craft beer industry. Go to hopsdirect.com right now and get what you need to make your brew day better. That's hopsdirect.com. Today's show is brought to you by Imperial Yeast. You hear us gushing over Imperial Yeast all the time, and that's because their yeast performs for us in every batch that we brew. Imperial Yeast is adored by commercial breweries and home brewers alike. Their pitch-right pouches are jam-packed with over 200 billion fresh yeast cells, guaranteed to deliver flawless, fast fermentations every time. Imperial Yeast strains are grown by a team of pro brewers and home brewers who live to help other brewers learn more and ferment better. Join any recipe receiving tier of our Trub Club and get a free upgrade to premium Imperial Yeast with every recipe kit that ships out to you. Learn more at homebrewhappyhour.com/club and come brew with us.
Entertaining shows with content that spreads information and sparks discourse throughout the community. This is the Pearl Media Network.
Pressure fermenting a lager at room temps, building a Jockey Box, and preparing strike water for an early morning brew day. This is Homebrew Happy Hour, episode 344. Well, hello and welcome back to another episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. This is the show where we supply the answers to your homebrewing questions and discuss all things related to craft beer. And if you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, you can go to homebrewhappyhour.com, click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or even better, call it in, leave a voicemail to 325-305-6107 and get yourself a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. I'm one of your hosts, Joshua Steuben, joined as always by my co-host, well, one of them at least. He is the president and chief keg washer of kegconnection.com. It is Mr. Todd Burns. Todd, cool new sign behind your head. Whoa.
Thank you. So I have to ask you, why is it a mirror image from a camera?
A mirror? Well, it doesn't have to be. It can be, but it doesn't have to be. I don't mirror mine. Like, this is my left hand, and people watching it go, yeah, that's his left hand.
So when you look at mine right now, does it have a mirror image?
No, the Muntins is over your left shoulder. From what the people at home see, it's over your left shoulder. Are you seeing
it's over my left shoulder on my view too, but it starts with the wording goes backwards on the sign.
No. Don't worry, Todd. The people at home see the sign as it's intended to be read.
They do. Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna see I was gonna look at your signs to see. And I looked back there, but it's all in Japanese.
Well, is it backwards or not? Here, my hat is my hat backwards. It says Nawaza. Well, my hat is backwards, but look at it.
No, I can't. I
oh
can't
gosh,
see
you're
it.
blind.
I don't have my glasses on.
Anyway, the 18 people who were watching have now left. We are missing one, James, and he tried to get on the show, but thankfully he flaked on us today. And I say flaked, I didn't want him on this week. He's at the beach with his daughter enjoying a much needed vacation. I was hoping by 1 p.m. Central, if you're on a beach trip and it's 1 p.m., you're what, 3 sheets to the wind, or what's the saying?
At least 3.
Yeah, at least 3. Like you should be. You're at the beach. You gotta enjoy yourself. But he texted this morning, guys, I can't make it. I was like, good, enjoy your day. And then he sent photos of their trip, and it looks like they're having a good time. So I'm glad. James,
it really does.
I'm glad James is there at the coast. I believe Port A, it might be Corpus. It's that Padre Island area, but I'm glad he's having a good time. Sorry, James, if you don't want me revealing the location. When people listen to this, they come find you now at the beach. He's really easy to spot at a beach. He's 100 feet tall. But anyway, so James is out on vacation, which means it's just you and I, boss man. And I've got a bunch of questions for us, and I've got a voicemail. Before we get to the listener feedback and the questions, I got some small talk to get through. The alt pokal. Let me put that on the screen. There we go. Boom. You still got time, friends. We are now, I know it's not on your screen.
I don't see it.
I hate you. You have time to sign up between now and the end of the month. If you go to altpokal, all one word, ALTPOKAL.com, it'll direct you to a landing page with all the information for registration, the rules set, what we're going to do, the date, October 19th through the 21st. What? Well, we
talked about this yesterday.
No. We've been announcing this. Have you? Did your friends not get back to you? You just
no. They're supposed to get back to me.
What's there to get back on? So they haven't planned the trip yet.
No, I mean we're almost certainly doing it that week.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so
wait a minute. You're the guy that moved the last one.
Well, if we're gonna move, if this is a big if, let me put myself back on the screen. If we move it, we need to move it back, not forward.
Okay.
Right. I'm just saying, to give people a chance for their beer to mature. People don't mind when you go back, but they really hate when you go forward on a beer competition. I didn't
suggest we should go forward.
Yeah, but you had something going on the weekend after that. Well, okay. Listen, go to altpokal.com, sign up. We
may do an actual contest at some point. Yeah.
I hate you. We are doing a contest. It's going to be in October.
I think it's funny how it's a really big deal when I do it.
No, I didn't say. No.
It's not a big deal at all.
Yes. Thank you. You get it. It's like when people write in and they go, "Ooh, you think you're so funny," and I'm like, "You get me." Yes. Yeah. That's absolutely what's going on right now. All right, we're gonna figure it out. But there is going to be an alt pokal. You're making people now. We've had 33 people sign up, and now you're making them nervous because they're like, we might have a contest. No, we're going to have.
It's getting really iffy. I don't know.
I hate you so much. The shirts are ordered. We've got other stuff but it's toss up in the air. Either way, the alt pokal, I'm excited. We want to thank our wonderful sponsors at Muntins, Hops Direct, and of course, Imperial Yeast for their continued support of not only the show, but everything we do outside the show, supplying our people.
I don't have anything on my calendar the week after. I don't know why you're saying that.
Oh, I thought you did. Okay, well, we'll figure it out. Maybe I have something on my calendar.
I mean, you're talking about a long time away, too.
Right, which is why
it's 2.5 months, right?
Yeah, 2 months, right? It's August, September. Yeah, it's like 2 months and some change from today. Not 2.5. Today's already the 17th.
2.5.
It is not 2.5 from the 21st.
Okay, look, if you go to
from the original
September
date.
From the original date, yeah.
From the original date, it's not 2.5. And that's what I'm getting at. All right. So you're saying you want to make it October the 26th through the 28th is what you want to do.
I'm not sure yet, but I'll let you know as soon as I can.
Well, I have nothing on my calendar either. So
okay, perfect.
Late October. You're a problem solver.
We have questions.
And you bother me. Anyways, it's going to be in late October, friends. I promise it's happening. Don't listen to this guy. I almost want to edit that out, but I'm not going to because I'm lazy. altpokal.com. You can learn more about the event, the dates, watch for the date change. If anything, it's going to be pushed back. It won't be pushed forward. But yeah, Todd makes a good point. I did push the Alt Cup or the Kolsch Cup back by a week. Thankfully, people were okay with that. But anyway, Alt Pokal. And then the last bit of small talk I have, I think it's on the screen. There it is. The Comanche Moon Summer Ale is this month's Trub Club recipe of this month. That's redundant. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Join a recipe receiving tier. Come brew with us. Like I mentioned earlier, we cannot do what we do without our wonderful sponsors, Muntins, hopsdirect.com, and Imperial Yeast. They are providing our Trub Club members with the best ingredients you can possibly get. And these recipes are just, we're putting out some bangers. So we couldn't do it without them. And more importantly, we couldn't do it without you guys, whether you're at a $1 tier or we have some in the triple digit tiers because they're getting 15-gallon recipe kits every month. We sincerely thank everyone who's supporting our efforts at Patreon, or if you're just subscribed, if you're at youtube.com/homebrew happy hour, liking and subscribing. If you rate us on your favorite platform that you're listening to, Apple Podcasts and Spotify are the two most popular. If you're enjoying the show, go give us a rating. If you're not enjoying the show, you're more likely to leave us a rating, I have learned. But we want to thank everybody in the Trub Club and just people who are tuned in every week. We sincerely appreciate it, and it keeps us going and doing what we are doing. So I do believe, Todd, that's all the small talk I have. Oh, hold on. One more plug of the Comanche Moon Summer Ale, patreon.com/homebrew happy hour. Join a tier. Come brew with us. That's all the small talk I have, Todd. So with that being said, it's time for listener feedback. I almost pushed the listener feedback button twice. We do have some listener feedback, and it's from way across. You only say across the pond when they're in the Europe and the UK, right? What do you say when they're in Australia? Is that just the bigger pond they're across? Either way, from down under, we have some feedback from our buddy Headley.
There you go, down under. Yeah.
It's some feedback about using a heat pad during primary fermentation.
Hey guys, it's Headley calling from Sydney, Australia. But just to be clear, I'm a Kiwi. Just want to make the distinction clear there. Hey, love the show, especially Josh. He's the whole package, obviously, both as a physical specimen and as a presenter. Yes, I really love the show. I can even interpret some of your arcane systems of measurement and manage to figure things out, so I've learnt a lot. I just wanted to talk a bit about fermentation temperature control. Obviously in Australia, it gets pretty darn hot in summer and fairly cool in winter, so we need to both cool down the wort sometimes or heat it up. And in terms of actually heating it, rather than using a temperature pad, I'd recommend using a belt around the outside of the fermenter. I have a plastic fermenter, a bit like what you guys would call a bucket, I suppose. But if you put it on a pad, when you actually are heating the wort, all that heat's going up through the trub and through the yeast cake before it gets to the wort or the beer as it ferments and to wherever you're measuring the temperature from. So all that heat going through the trub can produce some off flavours. So I think a belt's better. The heat's going directly through the side of the fermenter and into the liquid beer rather than through all that sludge and yeast and stuff in the bottom of the fermenter. So it's less likely to give you those off flavours. But that's just my 5 cents worth. Keep up the work, guys. Love the show. Learning a lot. And if I do end up with my feedback on the show, give the gift card to whoever asks you a good question. Obviously, it's not much use to me being on the other side of the world. But, yeah, thanks, guys. Catch you later.
Thank you. And that reminds me, Google Voice apparently doesn't let me text internationally, Todd. So I try to reply to him like I do with everyone. Hey, thanks for your voicemail. I got to go. It didn't go. So if you're listening, email joshua@homebrewhappyhour.com. I know like you said, the gift card doesn't mean anything to him. So I'm going to go ahead and use the gift card myself. I'm going to, and by that, I mean, I'm going to steal from you, Todd. It is great advice. If you think about what he said, it makes perfect sense, right? That when you set the bucket or the carboy on a pad, all that stuff's transferring up through the stuff you're not going to be transferring into your final serving keg. I don't know the science behind it, but it does make sense. And I always felt like the wrap provided a more even temperature control anyway. Like when I'm thinking about it, I've never done it.
Well, I think what he's saying is that it heats it up more than it should on the very bottom, and that's producing the off flavors.
Well, yeah. Well, the way I took it, and I was listening, I promise, was that the heat is starting at the base, going through that stuff, and kind of bringing off flavors with it into your fermenting batch. That's how I took it. Agree to disagree, but I will.
You just said the same thing.
Oh, okay. Well, I will, and
in other words, it's maybe if it's when you're measuring it from the top and it says this is I don't know what would be a good temperature, say 75, 80. Now I'm self-conscious because
not 75,
I'm using
80.
This archaic measurement system.
Oh, you're trying to go Celsius. Okay.
I have to say it in Celsius, but what he's saying is that if it's 70 Fahrenheit or whatever the temperature is, I'm just making something up.
65.
Where you're measuring it, down below, right where that pad is, it might be 95.
Right. You're making the number up.
That's causing the off flavors.
Right. That makes total sense. I think the one thing I really got out of his feedback, though, is even a Kiwi living in Australia knows that it's pronounced trub. Mommy, I was going to give him a $100 gift card for that. He made it a point to enunciate, too. Twice. Trub. Thank you. You know how much feedback I get any given week? Josh, the Trub thing is getting old. It really isn't pronounced that way. Well, you know what? It's 2023. We can do whatever we want. And it's the internet. So,
I think James and I are going to be going to Australia at some point because we need to actually visit some people in New Zealand. It would be really cool to try to somehow work that in where we can meet with some people there, since we actually have a lot of listeners there.
We do.
Believe it or not. I think we have
dozens.
Almost like close to the United States. I think we have like 5 there.
We do. Then the
10 in the United States.
They double our listener base. Yeah, they do. Yeah, no, let's keep talking more about trips you and James get to go on, and I have to stay back. Yeah, that's this episode. This week is Todd is ditching Josh. Ba-da-bum. Anyways, thank you so much, Headley, for the information. Like I said, I could not text you to thank you. So, and I don't have an email for you because you're not in our database.
I'll tell you what, when you find a customer and start bringing in a lot of revenue from that customer, wherever they are, I'll take you there.
Oh God, shut up. No, I can't trust your promises. Am I going to Germany this year? I can't trust your promises.
That was a lie. Yeah.
Exactly. Anyways. All right, Hadley, thank you so much. This is a great reminder if and when you call and leave a voicemail and we play it on a future episode, whether it's feedback or whether it's a question, to 325-305-6107. You do get yourself a $25 gift card to KegConnection.com. Like our first question of the week, Mr. Burns, it's our buddy Jared from New Jersey with a voicemail.
Hi, Josh, James, Todd. This is Jared from New Jersey. First of all, thanks so much for your show. I've been listening for a while and learning a lot. I've been brewing for about a decade, but I've never done a lager before. I didn't have the temperature control to cool it down that much to ferment. But now that you are pressure fermenting experts, I wanted to look into pressure fermenting my first lager. I'll be doing it in a corny keg with a floating dip tube and then transferring it to a serving keg. So I'll be fermenting it without temperature control in my basement, stable around 70 degrees. So my question is, I know normally with a lager you would do a diacetyl rest. At the end of fermentation, you bring it up to a higher temperature for a while. Do I need to do that if I'm pressure fermenting a lager? Do I need a diacetyl rest? If so, how do I do that when it's under pressure? Do I warm it up higher than 70 degrees? Or do I need to take it off pressure at the 70 degrees? Or do I just give it extra time under pressure at 70 degrees than I otherwise would? Any help is appreciated. Thank you.
Now, a couple of things. One, we are the experts. We're the foremost experts on the internet now of pressure fermenting. Like that's something I think we should boldly claim. We have people on the show who are experts, and then that's by the process of osmosis, we have now become the experts. But I'm also thinking, and here's the second part. We're about to get a Marut minute at some point. He actually left a voicemail that I'm going to play on NetStreet's episode because I just got it. So it would be relevant. He'll have something to say. He's going to be screaming at his iPod or whatever he listens to. It's on iPod, his iPhone. Do people still have iPods?
I have one.
No, you don't. You still have
I just found it the other day.
I have an iPod down here. Actually, I'll after I ask you to answer this question, I'll grab it. I think I know the answer in regards to the diacetyl rest part. We'll start there, and then we'll kind of dissect this, and I'm going to drag it on because that's what I do. You're pressure fermenting at room temp, and that is preventing you from having to do a diacetyl rest because the pressure. Throw in some scientific words or whatever. I really don't know the science behind it, but that's preventing the off flavor where the diacetyl rest would be to prevent the diacetyl from forming. In this case, the pressure is fulfilling that role. Therefore, the whole fermentation is done at 70 under pressure. And then when you do your number reading and it's ready at that point, right, Todd? You're not having to leave it at room temp or raise it up anymore. You can now go to the lagering, cold conditioning part of the process.
You explained it absolutely perfectly, and there's really nothing to add. We can take the next question.
Hold on. Here's my iPad or iPod. Look at that. I really do. Like, my dad gave me this in like 2017 when he won it at a poker thing, or 2018. His degenerate gambling has paid off.
That's a cool story.
Isn't that a cool story? Anyways, no, do you really think I answered that perfectly?
But it was perfect. There's nothing we could add.
No, shut up. There's more to the question that we can absolutely
No, there's
add.
not. That was the whole question.
Yes, but you don't know why that is? Is it just because... Do you know the science, I guess is what I'm getting at? Because I don't understand it. I like what Jonathan did talk to me. We text all the time, and he was like, that 2 packs of Lalaman would be perfect at room temp. Under pressure, you don't got to worry about it. I was like, I can get my office though to 65. He goes, but then you wouldn't have to do pressure. And I was like,
yeah, there's no reason to do pressure if you're going to do that. Yeah.
Right.
But so the diacetyl just it can't come out at a lower temperature. It comes out at a higher temperature.
I get that, but at 70 is not a low temp. So what is it about the pressure? It's just suppressing it. The pressure just suppresses the diacetyl from being able to form. That's what I'm saying.
No, you don't have. You already answered the question.
I know,
you said you don't need to do a diacetyl rest. The reason you don't need to do a diacetyl rest is you never got it cold and you never trapped the diacetyl
gotcha, because
in there.
I get what you're saying. It never had a chance. I got you. Okay, that made sense. So it's funny. I took the question because it is a good question, and I forgot James was not going to be on the show this week because of the 3 of us, he does every batch at room temp now, right? Under pressure, and then he'll throw the glycogen
I
on.
don't know that. But
I think he does most of his primary fermenting done at whatever. What is that brew room set at? 74, 70, 73?
No, 76, 78.
Oh, is that high? Okay. But I know, but his batches have been turning out crisp and they've been turning out delicious. And I know from my understanding, and maybe we're going to have the James Carlson minute next week where he corrects everything I say. If you're listening, James, I believe not only does he does primary at whatever room temp is under pressure, like 10, 12 PSI. You'll have spunding valves there too. And then when it is done, the moment it's done, he then starts cold conditioning. He starts crashing it, and then he'll leave that, I think, for as long as he would a normal lager. If you're doing one under pressure, you still want to cold condition as long as you have the time for, right? Like that process doesn't get shortened out just because you're pressuring fermenting the primary part of it. Did that make sense, that question?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is the thing, though. Most people that are pressure fermenting, the reason they're doing that is they can't cold crash it necessarily. Or if they do cold crash it, they're putting it in a keg and putting in.
That's what I meant.
And something and letting it crash, and then you're just sucking the bad stuff off the bottom. And yeah, so I mean, I use when I cold crash, I put it in a secondary glass carboy, and then I only pull the beer out that's on the top, so I'm not getting any of that crap in there. But I don't. I mean, it kind of. If you could cold crash, then you can lager. So why would you pressure ferment?
Well, not necessarily true because he's in a keg and maybe he only has a serving. Maybe he doesn't want to do his fermentation for a lager at 30 35 or 38, whatever your average kegerator temp is. So he's going to do the fermentation side of it in the keg with his floating dip tube. And then,
and you think he's going to cold crash in a keg?
Yes, that same. I bet you that same keg with the floating dip tube. Oh, I say that. Did he say he transfers it to a serving vessel? He did. He does. So he says. So he primaries in a corny keg with the floating dip tube, and then transfers to a serving keg. So that gives him even better chance of not sucking up nasties and all that. But to wrap up the question, because I did successfully drag it out a little with useful information. I already answered why you can do it at 70 and you don't need a diacetyl rest. And in regards to the serving side of it, like we did for Homebrew Con, Todd, transferring, even without filtering, but letting it sit cold for a week and then transferring to another keg, you think objectively made a difference in the clarity of the beer?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, I think that's one thing people need to understand. If they're actually pressure fermenting in a keg and then they're cold crashing and then they're serving that beer, and you're going to get a bunch of crap in the glass the first couple glasses, and then it gets crystal clear and it's beautiful. If you move that keg, it's going to be mud. So you either have to put it in another keg or you can't move the keg, because as soon as you move it, you're going to stir all that stuff up and it's going to be coming out again.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I think we successfully got that question.
Yeah. I'm amazed at your ability to drag out a question. It's amazing.
I'm good. If I had a nickel every time I dragged out a question, I'd have a crap ton of nickels. So thank you, Jared, so much for submitting that question. This is another reminder: when you call and you leave us a voicemail like our buddy Jared did at 325-305-6107, you get yourself a $25 gift card to kegconnection.com. If you use the submission form at homebrewhappyhour.com or email Joshua at homebrewhappyhour.com or text that same hotline I just mentioned, you still get yourself a $15 gift card, which I think is pretty good. So moving on, our second question of the show, Mr. Burns, was from our buddy Jordan G, who did send a text to 325-305-6107. And he wrote, "Here's a question for you. I'm going to build a Jockey Box. It seems like I could save some bucks using a coil instead of a cold plate. Why is that? Which is better? Also, should I use flow control faucet for best outcome? Thank you for any help you can give." I got this text probably 4 months ago, or whenever the beginning of summer was. And when I deleted on accident the voicemails, I remembered, oh crap, the texts though weren't deleted, that database. So I went in there recently. You and I have been working on a Jockey Box project, and there is this God is good to me, where he just is like, here's this relevant thing that y'all been working on. It's at the forefront of your mind. Put it on the show. So Jordan, thank you so much. But it is relevant because we are totally redoing the way we are offering Jockey Boxes at kegconnection.com. And that's forced you and I to be more involved in how one should be built, what would go into it. We had an order for a DIY kit, and you and I got a mock, not a mock. It was a real cooler down, but mocked like we were building it. And what would need to be in this kit for someone who really wants everything they need to build their own Jockey Box, blah, blah, blah. So with all that preface out of the way, coil versus cold plate's the first part of this question.
Okay. So, I mean, a cold plate has the coil, or it has the stainless steel tubing inside of a giant block of aluminum. And the idea is you get this giant block of aluminum very cold by putting ice on it. It's recommended by the people I've talked to that do cold plates that you only have ice on it. You don't have it submerged. I've never 100% understood why, but that's what I'm told by knowledgeable people, more knowledgeable than myself. Whereas with a coil, you actually want that submerged in ice and water and get as much cold as you can. I used to recommend that people use as long of a coil as they could, because the longer is always better, and it's going to give you more beer and blah blah blah. But I've doing a lot of research recently. What I've realized is that, say, a 50-foot coil is going to give you basically a full beer when you pour a beer. And the recovery time's very fast, because as you poured that beer, another, 20 ounces or 18 ounces, it holds somewhere around there, is filling that back up. You're giving the person the beer, or you're taking the beer yourself, and then you get ready to pour another one. It's cold really quick, so it actually recovers very quickly. A 70 will do about a beer and a half. 120 will do more than 2 beers, I believe. But the problem you might run into with some of the really long ones is that you actually get too much restriction. So you get to the point where you're restricting so much that your beer's not going to flow very fast. So then you have to compensate for that by increasing your pressure. And by increasing your pressure, you're eventually going to overcarbonate the beer. So you need to use it very quickly. So, I would say one of the definite advantages of a cold plate is that it doesn't provide anywhere near that much restriction. In fact, you're probably going to need some hose to restrict it at the end. So if you're pouring beers and you're not pouring them super fast, that cold plate retains that cold really well. And it's going to, I guess the other thing too is not so much fast, but you don't want your beer to be super hot coming into a cold plate, because it doesn't have the ability to cool a whole bunch of beer and then pour that whole beer out. So if your point is to basically take a keg that's cool and pour cold beer, a cold plate works well for that. I think a coil, the thing that's much better about a coil though is that you can pretty much pour continuously. And when I say continuously, I don't mean you leave the tap open and you take a glass, put another glass under. I mean, you're going to run out of, obviously, it won't keep up with that. But what I mean is you pour a beer, you give that person the beer, you ask the person what they want next, and you get another glass and you pour it and you fill another glass. So there's got to be a little time in between. But, that would be the advantage of a coil. I think for me, ultimately, a coil would be better in a lot of situations where we're doing events and that sort of thing. And I would prefer a cold. I mean, I would prefer a coil just because it's so fast and recovering and everything. The one exception to that might be you're inside. It's 74 degrees. It's air conditioned. And you've got your keg there, and you're putting it through a cold plate. You can pour pretty much. It's you're just trying to get it down a smaller amount, and it would work well for that. But the answer to the question, I would say coil would be my preference. The other advantage of a cold plate is you do not have to compensate for over restriction by increasing pressure. So if you're going to be pouring, if you're going to leave something where a cold plate's going to be used to serve it for a very long time or for multiple days, and you don't want to decrease the pressure, that would be an advantage of a cold plate as well.
Interesting. Man, you gave a lot of info there. I like that. Sometimes I feel like it's pulling teeth, and you're like, that's the question, that's the answer, I'm done. That was really good. I was over here.
Yeah, but the question before was a yes or no question.
I don't know what you're talking about, man. I was.
I would have. You gave a long. I would have just said no.
Yeah, I was thinking, man. I was like, how do I drag this out? I can't drag it out. No, not dragging out. And I'm kidding. But you talked about the submersing of the cold plate. Is that why they made stands for them? I always wondered.
It is.
Okay, I always wondered
why you don't want the water. You want just the ice on it.
Okay, that makes no sense to me either. It's an enigma of my mind. We sell the stands, and when people do buy cold plate kits in the past, the stand, I remember during COVID, I think it was, we had a really hard time keeping them, or a source for them after we went out of stock, and people were like, I don't want to buy one without a stand. Like, just make a stand. I don't know what to tell you, man. Just leave it at the bottom. But yeah. So,
and back to the different sizes, I should mention, because I said the advantage of the cold plate. A 50-foot coil with what we're using, which is 5/16 ID, or actually it's OD, but anyway, that will give you pretty much a good pour at around 12 psi. You're getting about 15 foot-pounds of restriction, which is about the same as 5 feet of beer line, which is what we normally recommend. So that's one reason a 50-foot's really nice, is you don't have to worry about that at all.
A 50-foot as well is the the most budget friendly of the options, like 57 coils speaking, 50, 70, 120. I know they, like you said, they make the 120. Obviously it sells. What is the scenario where you would need a 120 foot coil if you're like at a craft brewery at an event?
You're pouring beer really fast.
Okay.
You got people in a line, and you're so you go to I don't know, Great American Beer Festival, and you got people in a line, but you're pouring them 1 ounce pours. Well, if you got people in a line, you're pouring them 16 ounce pints of beer, you need that extra for the recovery time. And the great thing about that scenario is you're also going to go through the beer really quick, so you don't have to worry about overcarbonating it.
There was an Oktoberfest at Real Ale, and I'm not throwing them under the bus. Real Ale, we love y'all. We had one of their old head brewers on the show. I still love their beer. Their new Kolsch. Let me plug them, by the way. Give them their Cruiser Kolsch. If you can get it, really good stuff. I think I left some in your fridge, and then I think you bought
I've had one a couple nights ago. It was really good.
So good. But my dad and I used to go to all their Oktoberfest. COVID kind of killed that, and this year they're bringing it back, but very differently. But either way, the story that I'm going with, or where I'm going with this story, is one of the first ones. They weren't serving out of their tap room because the event's all outside, so they had all their jockey boxes that they obviously use for events and stuff out there. Well, a couple of them must have either been too short of coils and for the demand, because it's a lot of people at this event, and it was foaming bad, man. It was. And I, obviously I didn't offer to help because I'm not a helpful person, but I did. I watching it like, oh no, I had no idea what was going on. I assumed it was temperature related because it's still pretty warm in Texas in September, when traditional Oktoberfest festivals are going on. But I suspect, do you think it could have been a combination of the beer not being cold enough and the coils being too short to serve that much at one time, and the pressure maybe being too high to try to compensate for that? What do you think could have been going on?
Yeah, it could have been any of those, or probably a combination of those things. The pressure being too high to compensate for it really won't make it foam, because if the beer's cold and that's the pressure of your keg and you've got that much restriction on it, it shouldn't cause foam.
Gotcha. And then to wrap up Jordan's question, though, because he did ask, flow control, is that something you'd consider on a jockey box, or is that overkill?
You really don't. I mean, I am the king of flow control. I love flow control. Everything's flow control for me. Yeah, you don't really need flow control in a jockey box, because your problem with a jockey box, well, maybe on a if you were using a cold plate, it would make sense. But if you're using coils, your biggest problem with coils is actually over restriction. So flow control faucet's really not going to help you on a jockey box.
It would look pretty, though.
It would look pretty. You could put it on there and take all the insides out and just leave the knob.
Remember? Do you remember HomebrewCon Portland, where you and James made a 4-tap V10 jockey box? And I do believe y'all ended up selling it at the show to a homebrew club.
But it, to be fair, that was a cold plate.
It was. No, that's what I was going to say. That you had just said a cold plate, it would make more sense. And I think, we were trying to accomplish two things. One, having the best pour possible, but second, showing off Sam Becker's V10s. Like it's the flagship flow control faucet on of the whole catalog. So, and
it was beautiful, right? I mean,
it was incredible.
The faucets were incredible. I mean, we didn't use a real high-end ice chest, so it was kind of like lipstick on a pig, but it was still the faucets look good.
Oh, they looked great. Yeah, and they worked great. That was the best part of it. But anyways, Jordan, thank you so much for submitting that question. Third final reminder.
No offense to any of you pigs in the audience.
Yeah, no offense to you pigs. My dad's listening. How dare you? A final reminder: if and when you text 325-305-6107, you get yourself a $15 gift card at catconnection.com, which I think is pretty good. Or when you call and leave a voicemail, like our third question, to 325-305-6107, you get yourself a $25 gift card to catconnection.com, courtesy of the now sporting a Munton sign in his office, Mr. Todd Burns. So our third and final question is a voicemail, and it's from our buddy Nate from Oregon.
Hey, Josh and everybody else. This is Nate from Oregon. As a fellow man of frugality, I had a question about trying to get my strike water ready before I get up in the morning. I like to brew early in the morning when I can, but I don't want to wake up the whole house by firing up the propane burner. Is there any option besides an expensive all-in-one system where I could set a timer and a temp ahead of time so that when I got up in the morning, things would be ready to rock and roll? I appreciate everything you guys do. You guys do a great job, and I appreciate you. Thanks. Bye.
I think the obvious thing to get out of the way is the disclaimer that you should never let propane.
I was just going to say that.
Our solution, just to be very clear, and I'm not even going to joke about it, our solution does not imply or explicitly state you should leave a propane burner on overnight in your garage or anywhere on your property. That is not.
Well, he said in his house, which he's not using. Please tell me you don't have a propane tank in your house running that, because you should probably wake everybody up early and have them leave the house if you're doing that. So
you said how I took from it, and he said I believe,
why would you wake people up if it wasn't in your house?
I mean, making the noise to get to the garage and all. I don't know. You're right. I mean, Nate,
okay.
You got to provide some clarity here. Todd's throwing you under the bus. Like, yeah, my kids camp right next to the propane heater, and then right in the living room. You know, good old pioneer America.
Because God knows there was a lot of propane going on in pioneer America.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah. Okay. I'm mashing up generations. Anyway, but I did want to get that clear out there and cleared. I would never suggest, well, it's easy, Nate. What you do is in your garage, you just leave the propane on real low. No. Where I took this question, one, Nate's a good friend of the show. We enjoy his voicemails. But the main reason was because I think of your method that you do every time you're about to get ready for a brew day, and you get your water, your strike water to 180, 185 the night before. And then what do you do? I'll let you know what I'm trying to speak on your behalf. Tell people what you do to get your strike water as close to possible without having to leave your whole Brewtag controller on overnight.
Okay. So I get it all the way up to boiling, as hot as you want to get it. It doesn't matter how hot, but you could take it to boiling temperature and then turn it off. And then I wrap it in blankets, or however you want to insulate
cover it with a lid first. A lid first. Yeah. And then,
yeah. Well, I mean, our listeners are smart enough to know they need to put the lid on first, but we wrap it in blankets or insulation of some sort, and then just leave it overnight. And I believe, if I remember correctly, Josh, you lost a $5 bet on this.
Oh, I was so mad. I remember I got up and you were already in the barn, and I accused you of turning the system on to get it back up to temp, but you showed me how that wouldn't have been possible. And I was like, son of a gun. Yeah. I don't even think you got it to boiling that the night before. I want to say you got it to 180 or 185.
Yeah. Something like that.
And you had told me, it'll be you remember the bet? Was it 150?
It was like 130 or 130.
You said it'll be 130 to 150. I was like, no way it will. And it was more than 130. It was way closer to actual strike temp than I remember, than I felt comfortable believing.
Yeah, I do that every time now. I usually start brewing really early. So when I get out there, I can turn on the power and then kind of start getting everything together. And by the time I'm ready to pour that grain in, it's usually at strike temp.
Yeah, absolutely. And that is a solution that anyone can do with any ability to heat it the night before, whether it's the stovetop batch and then you just, you turn off the heat, obviously the heat source, and wrap it, insulate it, however. But he did mention, and it's worth mentioning, you could, Todd, let the Brewtag run overnight at whatever temp you wanted, even if you kept it at 120 or 130. You didn't feel comfortable, you didn't at 150.
Well, if you're going to leave it running, you might as well leave it running at strike temp.
Yeah, so 152, whatever you.
Well, strike would be higher, but yeah.
Well, I'm saying you're right. So 158, 160 is
something like that,
on average, right? Because yes, the grains bring down the temp, and you want to mash at 150 or 152, depending on the batch you're doing. Some are 148. It depends on the
which
batch.
is why you call it strike temp versus mash temp. Yeah. So, yeah.
But anyway, I'm saying the electric brewing, that is a perk of it that you can't, you don't, what?
I would never, there's no way I'm going to leave my electric system circulating all night. I mean, I'm going to wake up with 30 gallons of water on my floor and a hose is going to come apart. Something's going to happen. I would never do it.
I don't trust hose either. My dad taught me that when I was really young. But
oh my gosh. Wow.
Come on. That was easy. You just served up a softball night right out of the park. No, but your method is, so I didn't do it on this brew day. My dad and I did last week. We did the Kolsch. By the way, the whole Lala Man and do we have enough? Things work out funny. In the depths of my fridge, I had 3 packs of Dieter that were old. They were from March, and then one was from May, and then one was from November. So March of this year, May of this year, November of last year. We just pitched all 3. I didn't do a calculator, didn't do a starter, didn't measure anything out. That batch fermented great. It kicked off late in that evening. We pitched around 12:30 in the afternoon, and or I'll round up. It was 1 p.m. by the time I think we pitched, and by like 11 p.m. the batch of Kolsch was going, dude, and it's finished. I'm about to put it in kegs this evening because it is at 10:10.
So I didn't realize this when you were asking me the question originally. How many packs do I need to use? Are you saying that you pressure fermented that?
No. I just did it at well, I mean, I had the spunny valve on it which I guess was acting as a airlock. And so, technically, yes, it was under pressure. That is true. But it was, and my room was kept at 69. I tried to put it at 65 and it didn't get below 69.
Okay.
I don't know if that's a failure. I mean, it's been
69 is within.
It is within its range.
Temp.
It is within its range. So yeah, I didn't have to do it under the pressure. I was so terrified. The unit is overkill for this little office, but it's been 105 with a heat index of 115 or whatever. I'm exaggerating slightly about the heat index, but it's been miserably hot. It's 103 right now. I just didn't want to chance like, I'm confident my office can stay this cold that whole time, and then it gets in the 70s. I would have been probably a little bit frustrated with the amount of esters that would have come because the yeast would have been too stressed at that temp, right? I mean, that's the idea.
70, yeah. I mean, it's 65 to 60, yeah. You'd probably be okay at 70.
Probably, but I've made a Kolschweizen once in my life, and I did not like it. So that has given me PTSD. But that batch, I believe, is going to end up great. We're going to have a party in September to celebrate my child. So we are. That's why we did that under pressure. But where was I going before I started talking?
I don't know. I think most of your Kolsch's, when you weren't pressure, how cold were you getting typically?
Before I started doing them at pressure at all, like 67.
Okay. So you were on the higher end.
We have always been on the higher end, yeah.
Okay.
And because we'd also ferment in my dad's game room. And so that's such big square footage. Who knows what the actual temp was of that fermenting wort, you know? The big room had a window unit and it's pumping out. I don't know.
Well, all you got to do is put a thermometer where the wort is.
No, that's true. I mean, I'm saying in hindsight, we never did a measurement of it, but I'm saying the whole.
Oh, you didn't actually monitor it. You just set the thermostat.
Yes, correct.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah, yeah, and I'm saying so. Yeah, I know. In hindsight, yeah, it's like just something we didn't think of this 300 and some odd square foot room. You know, I feel better now fermenting in my little 140 foot square foot office. Because and I do have a thermometer on there. I have the sticky one that go on the all rounders that we're using, and the wort never got above 70 during the times I was able to look at it. So I don't know if that if 2 degrees is on the lower end of how much it raises or whatever, or if I just missed that high Krausen part where no, it actually got up to 74 inside that thing or whatever. But anyways, I'm confident this batch is going to end up good. Back to Nate's question though. Again, we're wrapping up this episode with letting y'all know, do not operate propane in your house. Do not operate propane or don't operate it unmonitored overnight in your garage. Yeah, I would even say.
So you can use propane in your house, but you have to make sure the tank's outside.
Yeah. Oh, okay, explain. Like you're right. We've done that. You ran a long hose one time when we did a. Well, that was natural. No, that is propane. You don't have natural gas.
That's propane. Yeah,
it was propane, and you ran a line all the way from the outside into.
Yeah, I mean, where propane would get you in trouble is if the tank explodes. Like there was a fire or something, and it got to the tank, and there's Google it sometime. I showed it to Josh several years ago, and he's absolutely sure he's never going to use a propane tank inside again.
Well, it took me a while to use a propane tank at all. And every time when I got that griddle earlier this year, I probably texted my dad a million videos of the regulator making any noise, and I'm being like, "Is that normal? Is this okay? Is this normal?" Hanging out with you, Todd, has given me PTSD. But I'm glad
to hear that.
Yeah. Someday when there's going to be a very lucrative opportunity for a therapist in my life, or ghostwriter when I write my memoir. Like the day you croak, I got some juicy stuff from my memoir.
If you ever need to talk, just let me know. I'm pretty good at.
You turn your hat around. Okay, company therapist.
I could be your therapist.
I want to talk about my boss. But no, kidding aside though, you shouldn't leave open flame source going overnight. If anything, worst case, your tank runs out and you don't have it heated up and it was a waste of time anyway, and you just went through that whole tank. It just doesn't make sense.
Open flame. I mean, people have open flames going all night, all the time though, for their heater system.
Okay. Where I was getting at.
One of the problems is a lot of times those tanks are not producing. So you always want a blue flame. If you got an orange flame or a
that's dirty.
Like a red flame, then that means it's eating all the oxygen in the room, and you don't want that.
Yeah, we don't want that. I agree. But I think we just both agree, regardless of the details I'm butchering, it's easier to get it up to basically almost boil if you want.
Yeah.
And then turn off your heat source, bundle that baby up with some thick, what kind of blankets are you using? Specific ones that can, like, because another safety thing I'm worried about now is we're telling people that, and then they're going to throw something on that gets scorched or stuck to the kettle, or is there a specific kind of insulation blanket?
Well, they're not going to have their heating system on.
No, but when you turn it off, you're immediately bundling it. You're
200 degrees isn't going to
make anything stick to. Okay. But I didn't know, because I have moving blankets. Obviously those would work great, right? They're thick.
Yeah.
They can handle temperature.
I've used those. Yeah.
Right. I was saying, do you have a recommendation before I wrap up this question with what to use?
I just throw blankets on there.
Just blankets. I'm going to go to justblankets.com and place an order for my insulation blankets. That's just blankets.
Okay. Perfect.
Justblankets.com. I'm going to go buy that domain before I publish this episode. Instead I'm going to buy it with my money instead of redirect to a picture of you with the broken hydrometer and just a pile of blankets next to you. Anyways, Nate, thank you so much for submitting that. That is the last question of this show. Mr. Burns, I was able to drag it out to like 50 some odd minutes.
That's good. You did good. I'm so proud of you again.
You're about to leave town.
I'm going to Chicago.
Helping your daughter. Your oldest is ditching us. She's found a career opportunity in the Windy City, and you're going to go help her find a place. So this isn't the moving trip. This is the research trip.
This is the trying to find an apartment to move into trip, and then eventually we'll have to move into that apartment.
Ooh, you're going to drive a trailer. I'm assuming
to Chicago. Yeah, it's 1,100 miles.
Is that what's longer, here to San Diego or here to Chicago, or is it like the same almost? I don't remember.
It's close. Yeah.
Oh,
it's close.
Oh, but you're going to be in the car probably. Well, you'll be with Liz, I'm sure. Or no, Liz is going to want to fly.
No. Well, we're driving together. It's basically 8 hours a day.
Okay. Yeah.
Two 8-hour days, and we're there.
Will Liz drive more than I offered to drive on our road trip?
Yeah. You said you would drive pretty much the whole trip, and Liz will probably drive more than you did. Yeah. You drove like 5 minutes, I think.
I did. 7 minutes. Okay, how dare you?
Well, to be totally fair, you were very sick the last day.
On the way coming home, yes.
Yeah, and you weren't able to drive as much.
On the way going up, I drove 20%. Y'all both did more than the 33% we had allotted. I did like 20%. I was in the back pretending like I was working. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I'm going to wrap up this show. No reason to drag it out more. Thank you for your time, Mr. Burns. I will talk to you later.
Thank you. Take care.
And that will do it for this episode of the Homebrew Happy Hour. If you have a question you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, go to homebrewhappyhour.com, click on that submit a question link at the top of the page, or even better, use our hotline at 325-305-6107. Leave a voicemail comment or voicemail feedback and get a $25 gift card to catconnection.com, and you'll end up being Todd's best friend. Thank you to our show sponsors like Muntins Malt, premium grains for a better brew day. If you aren't already brewing with Muntins Malt, give them a try by joining our Trub Club at a recipe receiving level. For the best hops available online, give our friends at hopsdirect.com a visit and pick up what you need for your next brew day. Also, get a pack of Imperial yeast along with premium recipes from us when you join the Trub Club. Go to patreon.com/homebrew happy hour and come brew with us. On behalf of Todd Burns, the vacationing James Carlson, and the Pearl Media Network, I'm Joshua Stubing. Thanks for listening.